that computer. Okay, I think we're doing it. If everyone is seeing me and the recording and possibly my name, then I think we're in a good state. Again, it's a little confusing because I've got two computers going on here. Okay, so I'm gonna just take 1 second to bring up my notes, and then we're gonna get going. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is Railsconf. Some people had signed up to potentially get Railsconf tickets. That looks like it is going to work, which is amazing and exciting and humbling. There are people that are going to support those tickets. I think we're going to be able to do a really good thing here. I don't know for sure that we're going to be able to give all the tickets, but it's looking pretty good. So stay tuned for that. And of course, just like another note that if you have applied for potentially getting a ticket to Railsconf and you have somehow gotten a ticket to Railsconf via something like a ticket sponsorship via the Railsconf sponsorship program, please, please, please email me because I can give your ticket to someone else. And that might be someone in the class. That might be someone out of the class. But let's make sure that no one ends up with 2 tickets because that would just be a real shame. Okay, the next thing is we're going to do the homework review because we have to, because that's what we do on every one. I'm not going to take a ton of time to go through the homework today because there's just so much other stuff that I want to cover. This is in many ways kind of the most exciting session that we're going to do. You're going to be all over the place. It's going to be great. We're not going into a bunch of technical content today, but we are going to spend a lot of time doing a lot of like exploration into kind of side things that will help your journey. So buckle in, it's going to be fun. Okay, Ramsey says, I would love to get a ticket. How can I get one? Ramsey, if you want to get a ticket, it's a little late, but I haven't closed the submission yet. Look out for a message on Slack that will give you the details of how to apply for one of those tickets. I have purposely avoided talking about the tickets in the emails, and the reason is I want the tickets to go to people that are doing the class. Okay, so if you're interested in that, please fill out the form. The form asks for a bunch of other details from you. It's going to ask for things like, do you actually need this ticket? Can you afford to buy this ticket yourself? Please do the best you can if you're going to fill out that form to fill it out honestly, because there is a very good chance that we're not going to be able to give tickets to every single person that wants a ticket. And I really, really, really want to prioritize tickets for people that cannot afford them. Okay, so Railsconf is a great conference. Fill out the form either way, even if you can't afford it. And we're going to do our best to try to hook you up with people that are willing to generously buy the tickets for the people in the course. No, don't send me a message on Slack. Just look through, just search in Slack. Just search for Railsconf and you're going to find the thing where I've said that. Rob says, have you contacted those contributing for Railsconf yet? I filled out the form, but I haven't heard back. Yeah, if you filled out the form, but you haven't heard back, that is just because I got a lot going on. And I have not contacted them yet, but I have been spending the past couple of days contacting Railsconf. And the reason that I did that is because I need to figure out how to logistically have someone else buy a ticket without giving your name to them. I don't want to give your names to some people that are, I mean, these are very nice people, they're going to buy the tickets, but I don't want to give your names to those people. So what I'm going to do instead, that I've worked out with Railsconf, is that they are going to essentially buy me a ticket, and then I am going to transfer the ticket to you. So we figured the whole thing out. That's a big part of the reason for the delay, is because we needed to make sure to do this in a chill way that doesn't make anyone's life bad and also doesn't compromise your personal information. Okay. Sweet. Let's go through the homework. So I have the homework up here. This is my session 15 review. And we're going to start with exercise 1, which is to create a guestbook model that has a name. So I'm going to start by creating a new Rails app like I do every time. I'm going to say Rails new 16 And we're going to wait for it to install. Manon says, hey, John, you said you had a form for employees to interview graduates of this bootcamp. How were the responses on that? Yep, people have filled out the form. They filled it out at the beginning of the course. I am also going to be sending the form out again to get people that maybe did not fill it out the first time. When I prompt for people to fill out the form the next time, it will also include some information about how many people I'll be sending their way. So that's important information to have for asking about it again. I hope also that when I put that out, other people can help get the word out on that thing. So I hope that answers your question. I cannot go into a ton of details about what employers have filled out the form, but there are a bunch of them. So, and also like, I don't think we're limited to the employers that are on the form. That's just a way to get a bunch of kind of people that have said, okay, I'm interested in knowing more about this thing. Okay, so let's go into that 16 directory and we'll open the directory and let's pop that server open. When we pop the server open, you get open in browser. That's going to open a new tab. And it's going to connect to the forwarded port. The same thing that kind of happens every time is we get this error that comes up. So I'm just going to copy this error, which of course you will not get in a real app. But hey, this is not a real app. This is just sitting on code spaces. So let's go into config/application. And let's scroll down. And we'll put it in there. And then we got to restart the server. So kill the server and type Rails s again. And we run it again. And it works. OK, so the first piece of the task was, again, to generate a guestbook model that has a name. So let's do it. I'm going to click the plus. And then I'm going to go into the 16 directory. I'm going to type Rails G model Guestbook. Now, I could type it like this with the underscore. I could type it like this. Rails doesn't care. It's going to figure it out. So let's just do it either way. And you'll see what it creates is the model, but it also creates the migration. So let's open up the migration. That's kind of the first place we want to go. Guestbooks have a name. I will delete the timestamps field, which I don't have to delete them. The timestamps are going to create automatic timestamps every time that something is created or updated. I'll keep it there so we can see what it does. So we'll do Rails DB migrate. Now I'm going to open up Rails C. I am in the bad code space apparently, so let's switch to stable version to avoid this problem. So I'm going to click switch to stable version, and we're going to go over to the stable version of code spaces, which hopefully is not going to have this weird triangle issue that people keep running into. Also, the Codespaces team knows about this, so hopefully it won't be a problem for long. Okay, so let's go in here and let's type Rails C. Okay, now if I create a guest book and I say I'm going to create a guest book with the name John, now look what happens. The record actually has an ID, which we expect. It has a name, which we expect. But it also has two timestamps that are automatically created. So it has a time for when the record was created, which is just now. And it also has a record for the last time that's updated. And Rails actually, if you include the timestamps, automatically will maintain the values of these fields. So created is set when you first create a record, and update is set anytime that you call update on a record, it'll automatically trigger the update of that field. So this is a really easy and quick way to automatically track the created and updated times of a guest book. It's really cool. I just avoided showing it until now because if I show it now, you're going to ask questions about, if I showed it earlier rather, you would say things like, what's up with these dates? Why are we doing this? But hey, we're at the end of the course. This is what the timestamps thing does. Okay. Next, we're going to create a guestbook entry model that has a guestbook ID, a person name, and a body. We can do that. So let's exit and let's do Rails G model guestbook entry. Now this time I'm going to use the underscore version. But again, I mentioned before, let's open up that migration file. It's going to have a person name. Guestbook ID, and a body. Okay, we can organize it however we want. You got the person name, who's the person that wrote in the guestbook, the body, which is the thing they wrote, and then the guestbook ID is the field that references what guestbook the entry is in. So if we type Rails DB migrate, we are good to go. Okay, now we're going to want to link those two together. It doesn't say it explicitly, but when we're creating models that depend on each other, there's another thing we have to do, which we have to go into the models directory. We have to go into guestbook entries, and we will say that guestbook entries belongs to the guestbook. We'll also say that guestbook has many guestbook entries. And just to expand your knowledge just a little bit, we're going to add this other argument called dependent destroy. And what that means, you may have wondered this before, is that when we delete a guestbook, in the case that we do delete a guestbook, by default, what's going to happen is all of the entries for that guestbook are going to stay in the database. What dependent destroy will do is when you delete a guestbook, it'll go and also delete all of the entries that were associated with the guestbook. So if you have two models and you want them to behave like this, you can include this option. And again, Rails will handle the entire thing for you. So this is like when you're looking for the ways to expand out of the comfort zone of what we've done in Rails, these are the ways to do it. You start thinking, oh, there's this thing I'd like to do. I'd like to make it so that when I delete an entry, that all the other entries get deleted too. How do I do that? You search Rails, clean up associated models. And then you're going to see something like this guide to active record associations. You click into that, and you are going to see somewhere in here details about dependent destroy. So that's how you expand. That's how you get good, is you just keep looking for new things. We can also test that this thing is working correctly in a console real quick, if that's interesting. So we're going to get GB, which will be the guest book, the first guest book, which is our, to show you it, it is gb.name. Oh, my console is doing annoying stuff. gb.name is John, right? Now, if I do gb.guestbook entries.create, it has a body of hello. Now, if I do gb.guestbook entries.count, you'll see, of course, this guestbook entry has one thing inside of it. And if I also look at guestbook entry.count, meaning count all of the guestbook entries, well, that's 1 too. Now, if I do gb.destroy, look at the queries that get executed. First, it executes a query to delete all of the entries. Then it executes a query to delete the guestbook. So now if we do guestbook entry.count, the new answer is 0. Okay, so because we want to be able to keep going, I'm going to just recreate that same guest book, which is called John. Okay, now we're going to keep going. The next part of the exercise in exercise 2 is to create an index page that lists all of the guest books. Let's start with that. So in order to have an index page that lists all of the guest books, we are definitely going to want a routes file entry, because without a routes file entry, we can't have an entry point into our application. In the routes file, I'm going to say resources guest books. That does a lot of things, but one of the things that it does is it gives me an index route, which is /guestbooks. Okay, so let's go to /guestbooks. We are going to go there. It's going to say something about a migration, click that button, whatever. Okay, and look what it says. Uninitialized constant guestbook controller. Well, of course, we didn't make the controller. So Rails G controller guest books, enter. So now it's created our guest books controller. Let's go in there. And the route that we care about defining is called index. Just because I'm nerd, we're going to write render plain OK, and it works. Now, we don't want to do that. Instead, what we want to do is we want to create an instance variable called guestbooks, which is equal to guestbook.all. And then I refresh the page again. Now it says, hey, you don't have a template for guestbooks controller index. but we can make one. So let's do it. Let's go to views. Let's go to guestbooks and create a new file called index.html.erb. We'll write hello world in there to verify that this step of our process is working. And if we go back to guestbooks, now we will see that blah, blah, blah. It says hello world, just like we wanted. Okay, now we want to show all of the guestbooks. So when we want to show all of something, what we do is we use an each. So we'll do at guestbooks.each do guestbook. It's just Ruby sitting inside of these ERB tags. And then inside of here, we're going to create a link to the guestbook where the link starts with the name and then it links to the guestbook path of the particular guestbook that we're talking about. Instead of hello world, I will write h2 guestbooks. And now let's view the page. Okay, so now I have guestbooks and I have John, and then it's had a S on the end. Like, what does that mean? Go back to my view. And it seems I just have a little typo where there is an S here, so I will remove it and refresh again. And now there is no S. Okay. The next thing in the instructions was to create a show page, which allows you to see the messages in an individual guestbook. Well, we can do that. So we've already created a link. When we click it, what does it say? It's going to give us an error. The error says, hey, the action show can't be found for guestbooks controller. So it knows the controller exists, but there's no show endpoint. So let's go up into our guestbooks controller and let's make a show endpoint. In the show endpoint, we're talking about a particular guestbook. So we're going to create an instance variable by assigning guestbook the value of guestbook find by ID of params ID. You might think it's weird that we're writing this kind of over and over and over again, the same find by ID and then a value. You can actually shorten it by, instead of writing find by, just writing find. Okay? So find takes in an ID and returns the model object. So let's refresh the page and it says, okay, I was able to load that model object, but like there's no template. So of course we have to go create a template. So let's go over into our guestbooks directory, create a new file called show, because we're talking about the show action. And inside of here, we'll start with an h2 that shows the guestbook name. Now underneath that, we're going to go through the guestbook entries, each do guestbook entry. And then inside of here, we want to create a div for each one. And inside the div, we will maybe create a paragraph tag that has the guestbook entry body. And then maybe an HR underneath it. And then like a little tag that is maybe strong. And inside of it, it has the guestbook entry dot person name, I think is what we called it. Okay, let's refresh. Oh no, undefined method guestbooks entries. Ah! Well, of course, we have a typo here. It's not guestbooks entries, it's guestbook entries. So we'll just fix our typo, remove the S, refresh the page. And now what we're going to see is we're going to see the H2 at the top and then nothing underneath it. And that makes sense because there are no entries. We actually could even add some code here that does this. If guestbook.guestbook entries.count is 0, no entries. So we refresh the page, we're going to see that there's no entries. And we can actually write this even cooler. Instead of guestbook.guestbook entries.count is equal to 0, we can say if guestbook.guestbook entries dot none. Super cool. So Ruby's expressiveness paired with its use in the view makes it really, really nice to be able to write code that is readable for yourself, but also for potentially designers that are having to work inside of the HTML and CSS. Okay, So let's add an entry just to make sure that things are working correctly. I'm going to open up my Rails console, and I'm going to assign a variable called GB equal to guestbook.first. And I'll do gb.guestbook entries. I think I wrote one back here. Let's go back to it. .create body hello, and we'll put the person name, and the person name is going to be Lynn. Shout out Lynn, and here we go. So I refresh, and now I'm able to see my single message, and of course it has an HR underneath it because that's what we put into our markup. If we want the HR to be at the top, we can just go in here, grab the HR, and move it up to the top, and that's fine too. Okay, let's run it again, and the HR moves. This is so cool. Okay, so now we're done with exercise 2. Let's move to exercise 3. I want to move the list of messages into a separate action and refresh it every 3 seconds via JavaScript. Wow, that sounds like a lot of work, but we can do it. So let's do it right now. What I'm going to do in order to do this is in my routes, I'm going to create a nested resource. So I have a guestbook resource, and inside of it, I'm going to create a resources guestbook entries. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I need to be able to, with JavaScript, be able to fetch the list of messages. I'm going to use the guestbook entries nested resource. I'm going to use its index route to be the thing that actually returns the list of messages. And I will show in a bit a different way to do this if people are interested in that and we have enough time. Okay. Cole says, I think I almost crashed CodeSpace a few times experimenting with set interval. The cool thing about set interval is that while it might seem like you're crashing CodeSpaces, you'll actually be crashing your browser because CodeSpaces is running inside your browser because the JavaScript, that's where the JavaScript runs. So the page will seem very slow. I guess the way you could crash CodeSpaces is if like you're maybe doing a fetch call inside of a set interval and it's just constantly fetching over and over again. That would be pretty interesting. Okay, oh, that's what you're doing. Nice. Okay, so instead of reloading the page, we want to only reload the list of messages, and we want to reload it every 3 seconds. Okay, let's give it a shot. This seems like a lot to take on at once, but let's see if we can do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my guestbook show endpoint, and I'm going to remove the markup that I actually have here for the guestbook entry. So I'm going to take it away. And then instead of it, I'm going to create a div with a class called message list. Okay. And then I'm going to use that class or that div called message list, and inside of it with JavaScript, I'm going to put the list of messages. So the messages you can imagine are going to go in here. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. But in order to make it really work, we need to use some JavaScript. So I'm going to go to my JavaScript directory, to packs, to application, and I'm going to add that same line that we kind of add every single time, which is require. It really wants that to happen, but can't let that happen. // guestbook. Today I'm going to use a semicolon, and that's fine. Guest-book.js. We're going to go in here, and for now, I'm just going to do a console.log hello. And if I open the inspector, we're going to see the hello appear on the right-hand side. So things are working. We're good. Now what we need to do is we need to be able to fetch over and over again. So the first thing we need to do is we have to create a document, add event listener on turbolinks load, and we're going to call the handler page loaded. So we'll make a function called page loaded. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my console.log, and I'm just going to put it inside of there. Notice how I'm taking these small steps. I keep saying it over and over again, but these small steps are super important. You might think that something's so trivial that you don't have to take a small step, but let me tell you, the first time that you skip one, it's going to be really confusing because you're not going to know which of the things you were trying to do is the thing that's not working. So it is definitely worth it. So inside of here, I need to get a variable that somehow holds a reference to the message list. We can do that with query selector. And remember, we're using query selector instead of query selector all because we know there's only one message list on the page. So a query selector is just going to be message list, and that is going to return the message list element. And I'm going to just add that to my console.log. The goal of adding it to my console.log is to make sure that I'm successfully getting a handle on that element. Now look, on the right-hand side, you can see I am getting a real element. If I hover over it, on the left-hand side, it's trying to highlight the message list, but it's empty, so there's nothing to highlight. There's nothing to put inside of it. So things are working. Now we can move on to the next step, which we need to actually populate the message list element. So let's call a method. Again, we're going to say populate message list. We're going to pass the message list element. Now we will implement that function. We'll call it populate message list, and it takes in the message list element. This is just to keep things separated a little bit. Remember, we're going to use a fetch call. That fetch call is going to take in a URL. Now, we need to pass something to the URL. In particular, we need to pass the ID of the current guestbook. Remember, our URL is going to be something like /guestbooks/ID/guestbook entries. So we need to be able to fill that ID piece in. I am going to show you a quick thing in JavaScript just while we're here, which is that the normal way you would write this, the way that I've taught you, is like this, where you would put ID in the middle, right? Everyone hopefully knows that this is how you would build a string that contains multiple things in JavaScript. There's actually a different way to do it, which is that if you just take these little quotes and you turn them into backticks, then you can actually include a $, curly brace, and ending curly brace, and that is called an interpolation. It's the same thing that you would do in Ruby, except in Ruby, it looks like that. Same idea, you don't have to learn it, but if you see it, see a $, inside of a backtick string in JavaScript, now you know what it is. So fetch is going to call a then method, which is going to take a response inside of this closure. And then response is going to get something called on it. It's going to get text called on it, which then calls then. Okay, and then once we have the text, all we have to do is we have to say, okay, the message list element, its inner text, inner HTML is equal to that text. So we're so close to this working. So the slash is, someone asked, is the slash the space in interpolation? No, what we're doing is we're trying to build a string. So the string that we're trying to build here looks like this. It looks like /guestbooks/5/guestbook entries, because that's what our route is going to look like. So the part that's actually the interpolation is this part. It's the $ curly brace. And that is the Ruby equivalent of hashtag curly brace. It's a different language, so they've chosen a different thing. That's just how it works in JavaScript. But if you don't understand that, it's fine. You can keep using the pluses. And eventually, you're going to get the interpolation because you're just going to see it everywhere. And then there's nothing you're going to be able to do other than get it. Because you'll be like, what is this thing? You'll see it 5 times in one day. And then you'll be like, I better remember that because I keep seeing that thing over and over again. So it's almost working. The only thing that's not working is, of course, we don't have any ID variable anywhere. So how would we get an ID variable? What we learned yesterday is that the message list element can actually contain what's called an HTML attribute, which is an attribute that goes into the HTML that we can read out with JavaScript. So if I go in here and I modify my message list to now have a data-guestbook ID property, and I can actually just take my guestbook ID and I can just place it right in there, data guestbook ID. Then I can go back to my JavaScript and I can say let guestbook ID equal message list element get attribute. Okay, that's my guestbook ID. So now instead of ID, just swap it out for guestbook ID. Okay, let's give it a shot and see what happens. Okay, so the page is going to load. When the page loads, it's going to go fetch the guestbook entries. And oh no, let's see what it says. It says uninitialize. Okay, and actually, this is really interesting. So we've clicked. And did anyone see what happened there? It said John on the page. Let me do it again. It looked like a regular HTML page, and then it replaced the entire page with this thing. So what's going on here? Well, what's going on is that this error is actually coming from the XHR call that we're making inside of our JavaScript call. And of course, it's telling us that we never defined the guestbook entries controller. So now all we have to do is go define that guestbook entries controller. We're going to do Rails G controller guestbook entries. And remember, the index action in guestbook entries is what we're going to use to render the entries. So let's go into guestbook entries. We're going to create that index action. And inside of index for now, I will do the render plane OK. So when we refresh the page, what we're expecting to see is John and then OK underneath it. This OK, you'll see the page loads, says John, and then the OK comes in afterward. And that makes perfect sense because what's happening is that the page is loading and then JavaScript is separately asking for the OK. Now, we want to be able to pass HTML, not just regular text. So let's remove the render plane. And instead of the render plane, we're going to go replace it with a view. So we'll create a new view. We'll do we'll do index.html.erb inside of the guestbook entries folder. And inside of here, what I'm going to write is I'm going to write h2 hello world. And all I'm trying to do by including the h2 here is prove that JavaScript will take the thing I send back as HTML instead of just this text. And it totally does. So this is great. We're able to send HTML from an action inside of Rails over the wire into JavaScript and then plop it on the page as HTML instead of as text. The only thing that we haven't done is in our here, if you look at the page, and this was called out yesterday, so if I inspect the page here, you're going to see that we actually have a whole page, then the message list, and then inside the page, there's essentially a whole other page of markup. And we don't want that. We just want the h2 hello world part. So in order to accommodate that, we are going to change render index layout false. And now when I refresh the page, it's going to look exactly the same. But when I inspect, it goes just the h2. Anonymous attendee says, what is the delay and can we customize the delay? The delay is how long it takes how long it takes the page. So you imagine like there's the first request, and that first request contains some JavaScript, and JavaScript is run inside the browser. So there's the first request that returns some JavaScript, then the JavaScript gets read by your browser, and then it makes a second request over to the Rails app. So the delay is just how long it takes a request to be sent to your Rails app and for your Rails app to respond. So you can't control the delay in this case. I can show you some ways that you can make the delay longer, but you can't make it shorter because it is the amount of time that it takes to actually make that web request. Someone asked what machine I work on. My normal machine is a MacBook Pro. The machine that is the one that I'm looking at right now is actually my old work laptop, which is also a MacBook Pro, but from 2015. Okay, Jody, I think I answered your question about timestamps earlier, but if I didn't, feel free to ask again. And Olawason says, models messed me up today. I lost 2 hours because of singular, plural, capitalization, associations. I hope this makes it clear. Yeah, models should always be singular, table names are plural, and so are controller names. Okay, so we're able to put some HTML inside of here. We are just so close. All we have to do now is we have to take the HTML that currently just says h2 hello world. We just got to put something inside of it. So let's go in here and let's do guestbook entries h2 guestbook entry, and then end. And then here, what I'll do is I'll just reintroduce that div In here, I'll write guestbook entry body, and we'll put that strong tag back to a strong that has guestbook entry person name. Now, because here I'm using @guestbook, I have to make sure that I've defined @guestbook in my controller. Good thing we checked, I haven't. So I need something called @guestbook here to be able to populate the thing. And in order to get it, I'm just going to do guestbook.find params of guestbook ID. Remember, this is guestbook ID instead of ID. And the reason is because we are using nested resources. So now if I refresh my page again, we should see our message come in. It is working. The messages are fetched via JavaScript. Okay, so the last part of this section was that we should make that list refresh every 3 seconds. So in order to do that, I've pointed you at a method called setInterval. And let's go just quickly look at how setInterval, JavaScript MDN, we're going to look at this. Oh, did not give me a good version. Let's look at this real quick. So setInterval is a function in JavaScript that takes a function as an argument, just like a lot of other things that we've seen. And it also takes an amount of time. And then it just repeats that thing over and over again every n amount of time. So we can do that. Let's go over to the Guestbook JavaScript file. Sorry for the background noise. There's a massive machine outside the door. Okay, so let's go here. And what we're going to do is we want to be able to repeat basically the thing inside of Populate message list. We want to be able to repeat it over and over and over again. So actually what we want to be able to repeat is this. We want to be able to repeat page loaded. So I'm going to rename page loaded. I'm going to rename it to reload message list. Then I'm going to take that name, I'll use it in here. So we're saying, oh, I want you to reload the message list on page load. So now functionally, this is the exact same thing that we had before. But now that we've renamed it, it's going to be really easy to use it in another method and have it make sense. So I'm going to add another entry here. I'm going to say setInterval. Remember, the first argument is a function. So I will pass a function called, let's say, reload message list. And I want it to repeat every 3,000 milliseconds. So now let's refresh the page and let's see what happens. Okay, so you're going to see in here that if I go to the network tab and I show only the XHR calls, that every 3 seconds, you're going to see another request coming here on the JavaScript page. So that means every 3 seconds, we're actually reloading this message list. And guess what? If we're reloading the message list every 3 seconds, that should mean that we should be able to go over to our terminal, open a Rails console, add a message, and have it show up in here. So let's do it. I don't know. Let's go. So we go here. We do Rails C. We do GB equals guestbook.first. Then we do gb.guestbookentries.create body goodbye person name foo. And I create that and I switch to the other tab. And look, it's already there. It's waiting for us. So we didn't have to refresh the page. It's just kind of there. And the reason it's just kind of there is because we're automatically refreshing every 3 seconds. So if I were to really quickly add one and then switch, you can probably see it come in. So we'll add one, we'll switch. Oh, it's so fast. Okay, let me see. We'll write instead of goodbye, we're going to say tools. I'm going to edit and switch. Ah, so cool. Okay, why are they all bold? Let's go look at our markup. And we're going to see that inside of our index markup, where is it? Where is it? In guestbook entries, we have essentially opened a bold tag, but we never closed it. So we can just close it here, and then the problem is fixed. The problem is that we've opened a tag but never closed it. Okay, I am going to show the JavaScript file because a lot of people are asking for that. So let's take a look at that JavaScript file. So just to go over some pieces of the JavaScript again, there is a method called reload message list. We're calling it on page load, but then we are also calling it every 3 seconds. Reload message list just finds the message list item and then calls populate message list. And all that populate message list does is it says, okay, first I have to get the guestbook ID, then I want to go fetch the messages, and then I want to place the list of messages into the HTML of the message list element. So the message list element sitting on the page in index here, in show here, is really just there to be able to receive the message list. The messages are loaded via JavaScript. This div is just here because we need somewhere to be able to say this is where the message list goes. So the message list is just there for us to put something into. Olowason says, if you were to load the /guestbooks, there will most likely be an error in the console. How do you segment your JavaScript in Rails? I don't know. Let's take a look. Let's go to /guestbooks. Okay, there's an error. So let's take a look at that error. Okay, so what the error says here is it says can't read property get attribute null. Let's look at our JavaScript to figure out why that's the case. So if we go here, the problem is when the page loads, it's calling reload message list. And then in here, it's saying, okay, find the thing called message list. Now the guestbooks page, the index route, does not have a thing called message list. So when we call populate message list, we're essentially passing it undefined. We're passing nothing here, nil, okay? And because we're passing nil, we're getting nil up here, and then we're trying to call nil.getAttribute. That's not gonna work because nil doesn't have a getAttribute method. So how do we fix it? Olowason asks. Well, it is pretty easy. We just say if the message list element is not set, then return. So that's how you segment your JavaScript. If I run the guestbooks page now, we are going to see no errors, no interval, no nothing. And then if I click into the guestbooks, it's still gonna work. Boop, boop, boop. Cool. Ernest says, what is the downside of set interval? The downside is just it, I guess like for the thing that it's used for, it's the only way to do that thing. It's the only way to set something on an interval. The downside, I guess, is like it's not guaranteed to be at exactly 3,000 milliseconds. I guess that's the downside. There's not really a downside. If you're making a chat like this, there are different ways to do it. There are things like WebSockets, but from the perspective of a downside, there isn't one. Andre says, is it the same idea behind various chat apps where messages appear automatically? Andre, it used to be the way that most chat apps were built up until probably like 2 or 3 years ago. And then at that point, people started using a thing called WebSockets. So if you're interested in that, they are very, very easy. You should look them up and they'll get some more information on how WebSockets work. Alakon says, can we refresh only after a change, like a DB triggers a refresh? Yeah, you totally can. So if you're interested in that, you should look up the JavaScript interactions for interacting with a form submission, and then you can refresh only on a change. Another way to do it is with WebSockets, like I just said. Someone mentions active cable in Rails. That is an easy way for managing WebSockets. My page is being problematic because I'm making too many requests. Okay, so I am going to close this tab for a second just because it's going to keep making requests. Rajesh says, could we have done it without nested resources? Yes, you can. Although you would have needed something that I did not teach. And because we're trying to expand boundaries, I'm going to show it real quick, which is that you can actually create routes inside of your resources using something like member do. And if I do member do and I say get hello, or sorry, get upvote. Now I go down in here, I open this browser and I say Rails routes. And I'm only going to select the routes that are about guest books. So now I look here, and you can see that by writing member upvote, or sorry, member do get upvote, I've actually created a new route in here called upvote guestbook. It's automatically created the route. It's automatically hooked it up to a controller action method called upvote, and it has automatically included an as. So essentially, this is the same as writing get guestbooks ID upvote controller guestbooks action upvote as upvote guestbook. So that's the same way as writing that. So the reason I'm showing you this is that if you wanted to not use nested resources, what you could do instead is remove the nested resource and then do member do get messages. Okay, let me show you how that works. So if I do get messages, then I'm actually going to go into my guestbook entries controller. And instead of, in the controller, and instead of having guestbook entries index, I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, and I'll move it into the guestbooks controller and call it messages. Okay? And it's going to render messages instead of index. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my guestbook entries index route, and I'm going to copy the contents, create a new view inside of guestbook called messages.html.erb, and I can actually just drop that, drop that content in there. And then the only thing I would have to do to finish this off is now the route, instead of being /guestbooks/guestbook entries, it's going to be just /messages. So this is a quick way to be able to create one-off routes inside of controllers that don't match the typical resources CRUD pattern of index, show, update, edit, all of that. So if I refresh the page using use kill all Ruby, Rails, I have broken something in my routes file. So let's go to my routes file and see what I broke. I need an end. Yes. This all should be in here, and there's a missing end. Thank you. So it's saying that a server is already running, even though I just unran it. So let's try again. Now I've really done it. Okay, so we've started our server up again. Click open in browser. That's our Rails app. Go to /guestbooks. And we're going to click on one. And it doesn't work. And it says record not found. And the reason is that because now we're inside of the guestbooks controller and not the guestbook entries controller, that the parameter name is now ID, just because that's how the resources work. And actually, you can see now that it works just like it did before. So that's how you can create one-off routes inside of your resources definitions, which is very useful when you're trying to create something like this, which is a list of messages. So that's an alternative to using nested resources. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. You just got to make the right choice. Okay. Felipe says, do this delay and populate and time functions cost a lot of server money? I mean, if it's how your architecture is built and it's valuable to your company, then it is worth it. So it's all just a balance of how many requests you want to run. If you're making a real chat app, you'll probably use WebSockets, but that's also going to cost a lot of server money because the WebSockets have to keep a connection open to the server the whole time the page is running. Alois says get/get recent entries/ID to guest. Yes, you can create a separate route. So you just providing a way to create a completely separate route. That is totally fine. You can do that too. Okay. So the last part would just be to create a form. I'm not going to do it, and the reason is because we have an hour, and I just have so many other interesting things that I'd like to cover instead of this. If you're interested in how to create the form is very straightforward. It was just a way to get you to see that the thing you're creating is actually something that can work, that is valuable. Because once you create the form, you can actually have 2 pages where you can type in messages, and they'll automatically update in both browsers. One will update via redirects. The other will update via fetching the most recent in the set interval. So I'm done showing information about this homework. I hope you enjoyed the walkthrough and that it has cleared some stuff up for you. For the most part, things should be pretty clear. You can make some simplifications to this, but it's actually really good. And notice here that I chose to not. You might want to take this function and be able to put it inside of here, like we've talked about a bunch of times. But in this case, it's actually not a good idea because you're referencing the function in 2 separate places. That's a sign that it needs to be a function. If you're referencing it only in one place, then you could simplify it, but in this case, you shouldn't do that. Okay, let's keep it going. The next thing I want to show you just briefly is how to write tests in your Rails app. So I know that we've heard some questions about this. I know that it is an important part of web development. So I would be remiss to not show you at least a little bit how it works. So every time that we've created a model, we have also created actually folder in test. If we look in here, we can actually see that there's a models directory that has a bunch of model tests that have already been created for us, and actually a controllers directory that has a bunch of controller tests that have already been created for us. So let's open one of these files. Sorry, let's open the other one. This is the file that's been created for Guestbook test. And in here, we can actually write our tests. So I'm going to show you how to write a test. So the way that we run our tests is we use Rails test. And when I run Rails test, you're going to see, look, 0 runs, 0 assertions, 0 failures, 0 errors. It hasn't done anything. But that makes sense because we haven't written any tests yet. The easiest way to write a test is to write test and then something you want to test. So I want to test that 1 equals 1. And then inside of here, you can write what are called assertions. So I will say assert equals 1, 1. So what this test means is I'm going to assert that 1 is equal to 1. I'm going to run the test again. Sorry, it should be assert equal. I'm going to run the test again, and you're going to see a dot. And what that green dot means is that it's run this test and that it hasn't found any problems. So now let's make a change, and we're going to make it so that 1 and 2. So it's trying to assert that 1 is equal to 2. Now I know that 1's not equal to 2, but let's run the test and let's just see how it behaves. So you can see here that what it said is it said, okay, here's the test that fails. The test fails is called 1 equals 1. I expected to receive 1, but the thing I actually received was 2. So it's going to give you some details on why the thing is failing. Now inside of here, you can actually use any of your Rails, anything that you want. So inside of here, I can say things like test that Guestbook entries are removed when Guestbook is removed. The behavior that we were trying to show you earlier. Well, let's do it. First, we're going to create a guestbook. We're going to say that it's equal to guestbook.create. It gets a name. Then we're going to create a guestbook.guestbookentries.create. It's going to get a body. Okay. And then we are going to assert equal 0. Sorry, we're going to destroy the guestbook. Then we are going to reload the guestbook. Sorry, we're going to write an assertion that says assert equal 0 for guestbookentry.count. Okay, so we're creating a guestbook, we're creating some entries inside of it, then we're destroying the guestbook, then we're making sure that all the guestbook entries are gone. So let's run the test. Okay, so what it's saying here is it is saying, I understand why this is happening. Hold on one second. Why is is happening? Okay, let me, we're so close to that being great. Instead of guestbook entry.count, we're going to look at entries only for this particular guestbook. So what I will do instead is I will reload the guestbook using guestbook.reload, or I can alternatively say guestbook equals guestbook.find guestbook ID. So the reason that I'm writing this is because even after you destroy, if people hopefully remember this from a previous episode of the course, even after you destroy, the record is still there, that you can still access it, you can still work with it. So we want to make sure that we're working with the most recent one. So when I write this assertion, instead of writing guestbook entry.count, I'm going to say the thing I actually want, which is guestbook.guestbookentries.count. So this is to say that we're going to destroy the guestbook, and we want to make sure that the guestbook has no entries left inside of it. So let's now run the test. Okay, we got a new problem. On line 9, we are trying to find the guestbook, but we actually can't find the guestbook because we just deleted it. So let's remove this line and see what the test does. Okay. Phew. So what we did here is we did a dot. So that means that it is successfully saying that when we destroy the guestbook, we also have destroyed all of the entries. Now imagine we also wanted to add an assertion before the destroy that says, hey, I will also want to make sure that there's one entry in here okay. So what I've done is I've made sure that there was 1 before, and then I've destroyed the guestbook, and then I've made sure that there is 0 after. So this is an automated way to create some kind of an assumption about how you think things work, and then enforce that things actually work that way. So tests are a good way to be able to write about how some behavior works, and then verify that it works. Ernest says, what test do you recommend, mini test or RSpec? I prefer RSpec, but I'm not going to teach it. So if you're interested in more about testing, you should go read about a thing called RSpec. But this also works. This is called mini test, the framework here that we're using for testing. So this is a very good way, and professional developers are going to do this for the most part, to write a behavior of how you expect something to be, and then be able to make sure that that thing is essentially an invariant, meaning it doesn't change. That once you say that you want to make sure that guestbook entries are destroyed when the guestbook is destroyed, you can check over and over again an infinite amount of times using just one command called Rails test to make sure that's the case. You never, ever have to think about whether or not that thing works again, because you're essentially codifying in your test the behavior that you expect to work. So just for fun, we're going to go to the model. I'm going to remove the dependent destroy by commenting it out. We'll run the test again. And look, we get a failure. It says, hey, I expected this thing to be removed, but actually there's still one entry in there. In Rails, you can write tests for models. You can write them for helpers. You can write them for your controllers. You can actually even write tests where you get a piece of HTML and be able to like assert that that HTML has the right properties inside of it. So you can actually even write tests about your full entire app. So that's as much as I'm going to go into tests, but I wanted to make you aware that they exist. The next thing I'm going to talk about very briefly is Rubygems. So if I go to rubygems.org, you're going to see that there's actually this entire community of things that are called gems. So Rails is a gem, active storage is a gem. These are all things that you get from this community called Rubygems. And you can actually search in here. So you can say, oh, I want a gem that works with tabular data. And here's a bunch of gems that work with tabular data. You can see how many downloads they have to give you an indication of how popular they are. And you can actually go and use them. So if I were to go in here and I wanted to be able to say, okay, I want to be able to tabularize some data. So let's click into here. Let's go to the documentation. And look, this is a gem called Tabularize, where you put some information into it, just like this thing that we did one time before. you put some information into it, and then you can puts table. I don't know, let's go use this thing. So we're going to go into our console. We're going to call gem install tabularize. That's how we'll install a gem. And then we can open up a console. First, we will require tabularize. I've never used this before, so who knows what's about to happen. And then it says that the way that we use it is first, we create a table using table equals tabularize.new. So let's go do that. Let's pass that in there. And then the next thing that we want to do is we want to be able to put in some headers like name, department, location. So let's put in some headers. We'll say that ours has name and location. Then it says that if we want to, we can, so right now we could do puts table, I think. Oh, how did they say to do it? They said to call puts table. So let's try again. Undefined method display with, this is depending on Rails. I'm gonna do the same thing I just did. I'm gonna do it a slightly different way. So if you're looking to add a gem to your Rails app, you will open up a file inside of here. I was hoping to do this in a second, but now I'm just going to do it a little bit earlier. Open up this file called gem file, and inside of here, you'll actually add the gem that you want to add. You just list it inside of this file. You can see that all of the gems that we're using, like Rails or SQLite or Puma or Sass, which is what does our CSS, or TurboLinks, the thing we've been talking about, are just in here. So we're going to put tabularize in here as well. And once you do that and you go to start your Rails server, it's going to, oh, it didn't stop me. You're going to have to type bundle. What bundle will do is it's going to put together all of the things that you need into a list. So now we should be able to go into Rails C, and we should be able to have require tabularize. Now let's go through the same steps we were going through before. Table equals tabularize.new, add to the table the name and location, and let's do puts table. This gem is not working. Let's try a different gem. Okay, so I brought up a gem even before the class. This gem is called, where is it? It is called Cicero, and it is a simple yet powerful lorem ipsum generator for Ruby. So lorem ipsum is some like sample text that you could use. So let's try to integrate Cicero into our app. Let's go into our gem file, and instead of gem tabularize, let's add gem Cicero. We'll write bundle, and that's going to go install lowercase Cicero. That's going to install Cicero, and now if we type Rails C, we can actually go here, we can look at how Cicero is used. So it says here that we can do cicero.word, and that's going to give us a single word of lorem ipsum text. So let's do that. And I did that, and it says, which means that this thing is working. So let's see what else we can do with Cicero. It looks like here we can do cicero.sentence. So let's try it, cicero.sentence. And when I do that, it says ut vitae terpis. Okay, so this gem, we didn't have to do anything. All of a sudden, we have the ability to generate some sample data that we can put into our page using this gem that someone else wrote in the world called Cicero. A gem is like a package, and yeah, exactly. It's like different libraries that you can use. So how do we actually use this in our app? Well, let's give it a shot. Let's create a new entry in our routes file. And in this case, we're going to say get, maybe we'll do the root route. So root controller will be the home controller, and the action will be index. We have to generate the controller that is home controller, which we're going to do. And then we get to open up that controller. We get to generate our index route. Because we've generated the index route, we're also going to want an index view. So let's go into our views directory, home, and index.html.erb. And inside of here, I'm going to write hello world, I'm going to write HR, and then I'm just going to write cicero.sentence. So I'm using this external library to generate a sentence. I'm just going to drop it right in my view because that Cicero sentence is just the string, just like any other string. So now let's go to our base route, check it out, let's see what happens. .503, and we don't have the server running. So we're going to start that server up, refresh. Hopefully something's going to work. Boom. So this is some text that's been provided for us by the gem Cicero with us doing no work. If I refresh the page, the text changes every time. It looks like Cicero has some other options. We can do something like a paragraph. So let's do it. Let's generate a paragraph. I don't know. I got a paragraph. Refresh, whole paragraph of text. We want to be able to generate 3 paragraphs of text. We can do 3 times do, because remember that's something that we can do in Ruby. And then we'll just surround each one with a paragraph tag. And refresh. Then we got 3 paragraphs of random text that we can use inside of our views. So really, yeah, you can also do. I realize that. I was just trying to show, but I did see that in the documentation. So Joel says you can also use Cicero.paragraphs3 to generate multiple paragraphs. You can totally do that. Jody says, is there a way to see which gems are better to install than others? What I normally do there, Jody, is I'll go to something. First, the number of downloads is a pretty good indication of whether or not the gem is popular. Other than that, I'd go look for blog posts that are about it. Or even better, go look on GitHub, be able to see how many stars it has, but also be able to like look at the code yourself. So if we were on GitHub, this is where Cicero is hosted. I can actually go in here and I can just read how Cicero works. So it's just another Ruby class, right? So we can just go read about it. Everything's Ruby. You know, you can go in here. This is some, I guess, text that they have in here. It supports maybe different languages of random text. It looks like pretty featured, but you can get a bunch of different ones that do the same thing. Okay, so I am very quickly running out of time. But what I'm going to show you is that there's actually a file inside your repository called package.json. And in package.json, this is the same thing, but for JavaScript. And it uses a thing called JavaScript packages, packages.json file, and it will use a registry called npm. So if I go to npm, this is the same thing, but for JavaScript. So this is a npm package called lorem ipsum that does the same thing, but it is for JavaScript instead of Ruby. So someone has done all the work in both languages. So basically, this is just to say that if you have a behavior that you want, a lot of times you get that behavior from an implementation that someone's already written. And that's true for in Ruby, and it's also true in JavaScript. So in JavaScript, you can see how this one would work. You would create a new lorem ipsum object, and then you can call methods on it like generate words or generate sentences or generate paragraphs. So, you know, the world is your oyster. I don't know if that's the thing that I'm supposed to say, but there are so many things out there just waiting for you to use them. If you're interested in making a site that shows weather information, there are free weather APIs that you can sign up for and you can go use in your application. Like right now, we could just put in a zip code and we could get the weather for that location out. That is something that you can hook into your application for free. They're called APIs. That stands for Application Programming Interface. So it is just a library that someone has made out in the world to allow you to do something. Sometimes those libraries do things like lorem ipsum, where they're just working inside of the context of your own computer. But sometimes they go out and they call to other places. They can do things like go get all of the tweets for a certain account and give you those tweets inside of Ruby objects that then you can include in your views or models or do calculations on them. So all of the things that we've learned over the past 15 days are actually just to set you up for the ability to be able to interact with other people's libraries and expand kind of your ecosystem of tools. It's awesome. And of course, like GitHub You can access GitHub data the same way, Twitter data, Facebook data, anything you want. So that's how you use gems, and that's how you use packages. Okay, the next thing I want to show you before we head into the kind of somewhat long presentation that will encompass our discussion around the final project, what I did want to do is I want to show you a couple tools. So what I've done on this computer is I have gone ahead and created a couple accounts. So the first account that I want to show you is my Heroku account. This is a new account that I created just for the bootcamp. And what I'm going to be able to do here is I'm going to be able to take the Ruby app that we've built via Codespaces or built on our own computer, depending on how you're working. And I'm going to be able to put it somewhere that other people can see it. Because right now our Ruby apps are confined just to our thing. So Heroku is a hosting platform that makes it really easy to take your Ruby apps or any apps that are built in any of these languages and put them on the internet. And actually the base tier for Heroku apps is free. So hobbyists can create apps, put them on the internet, and it literally costs nothing. It doesn't even, you don't even have to put a credit card in, it just works. And Heroku's whole play is that eventually, if your app gets a little bit bigger, you're gonna start paying them money. So let us try. Let us try. I've never done it inside of Codespaces. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm going to try. I'm going to create an app by clicking Create New App. I'm going to call the app Sample App 1, 2, 3. That's taken. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello, it's me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's available. Hello, it's me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to click Create App. Okay, so what I have done is I've created an app, but now I need to get the code for my app, which is the one that we've been working on all day, over to Heroku. And there's actually some convenient instructions right here. So I'm going to try to follow them. First, it starts by saying download and install the Heroku CLI. Well, I don't know if the Heroku CLI is already installed, so let's find out. And it's not. I type Heroku, it says command not found. So I need to install the tools for interacting with Heroku. So let's see if we can do it. I'm going to click the Heroku CLI link, and it's going to send me to this page. It says, here's how you do it on Mac OS. Here's how you do it on Windows. Now, I know that we're actually on Linux. So is this going to work? I don't know. Let's give it a shot. Nope, not going to work. So let's go back to Heroku. And let's go here. And it looks like if we do this, we might be able to get the Heroku CLI to work. So let's go for it. Cool. Now I'm going to type Heroku. And look, Heroku is installed inside the code space. So now we've put Heroku inside the code space. We still need to do this Heroku login. So let's give it a shot. And just type Heroku login. It says press any key to open the browser. I'm going to press it. It's going to say, hey, are you sure? I'm going to say, yep, I'm sure. It's going to let me log in. Oh, IP address mismatch. So it's giving me trouble because it is saying that Codespaces thinks basically the place where I generated the login request was in Codespaces, but then this URL is not inside of Codespaces. So I got to figure this out. What I'm going to do, let's try to copy this link, and maybe I can open another browser. No, that's not going to work. Think, John, think. Heroku login help. So it says here that we can actually log in at the command line with our username and password instead. Well, that seems great. I'm going to do Heroku login -I. Okay. I'm going to enter my bootcamp@gmail.com. And then I need to remember what I did here. I think that's right. Nope, it's not. I don't remember what I made my password. I'm gonna find my password. I should have made it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna stop sharing for just a second so I can try to figure this out. Invalid credentials. Oh no. Oh, I put the wrong email address. oldwordbootcamp@gmail.com. Hey, I figured it out. Okay, we're coming back in. So now I'm logged into Heroku. Okay, so if I do Heroku, maybe who am I? It says, hey, you're all aboard Bootcamp. That's me. Okay, so what's the next step in the instructions? It says that I should, if I was creating a Git repository, this is what I would do. I can't do that. So what I need to do instead is I need to just do the last part because I already have a Git repository. So let's create it like this. And look, it says set git remote Heroku to git.heroku.com. It is the URL for my Heroku app. And what I can do is I can git push Heroku main. Heroku. Let's look at the instructions because I'm trying to jump ahead. It says git push Heroku master. Okay, this is, you can now change your main deploy branch from master to main. Please follow the instructions here. The problem is that our GitHub branch is called main and our Heroku one is called master. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to git push Heroku main master. No. So sad. Oh, I think I see what happened here. Yep. Well, what Heroku went and did is they went and created a new Git repository for me. But remember, we're trying not to do that. In this case, I'm going to let it work the way that they've decided it should work. So I'm going to go like this. I'm just going to add these inside of here temporarily. So you want to add the files. You want to then save the message. And we should be able to git push Heroku master. Okay, so now it's pushing the same way that we would have pushed to GitHub, except instead of pushing to GitHub, it is pushing with Heroku. Someone mentioned, Erica mentions in the chat that it's easier to do with Heroku Create. That is probably true. So there's actually a way, once you have Heroku set up on your computer, sorry, on your code spaces, you can actually just do Heroku Create inside rather than creating the app in Heroku and trying to link them together. So what's happening here, all of the installation, is that Heroku is actually going and downloading all of the dependencies of the app that we just created. So once it finishes this, we should see something happen eventually. So let's see what happens. And then maybe I'll also show you how to do it via Heroku Create so that you don't have to have the same confusion that I just had. Actually, maybe I won't because we're kind of out of time. But what I would do if I were you is try out Heroku Create. But my whole point here is just to show you how Heroku works, which hopefully we are going to do that. Kevin says, do you have specific gems that you use often? You know, it varies for every project, really just based on the things that you need. So I don't have a set of gems that I use particularly often. It's really just like I have a problem that I want to solve. I think, well, this problem is generic enough that someone else has probably solved it in the past, and then I go look for a solution. People are talking a little bit about Heroku Create, and yes, Heroku Create is just a CLI command. So instead of all the things that I typed there where I did the git remote and all of that, you would just type Heroku Create instead. And actually, before you set up Heroku Create, before you type Heroku Create, you don't have to create the app over in Heroku. Heroku actually creates the app for you and sets up the place to push it to. In this case, things are a little bit more complicated because we're in a subfolder that is actually the Rails app. So it's not quite as straightforward as it's going to be when you actually want to do it yourself later. Because later, what you will be doing when you create your final project, and in the future forever, you're going to put the Rails app just in the root of the directory. We're in kind of a special case here because we needed there to be a directory inside of our project that actually is the thing we're pushing to Heroku. So in this case, I think Heroku Create maybe would have created some problems for us. So We're just going to wait a second. Okay, while this finishes, I'm going to go through the rest of the things. We will come back to this and we'll check out how it worked in a minute. The other thing I wanted to show you, because people were asking for it, is how glitch works. So we're going to briefly go through how glitch works. So in glitch, you have multiple projects and you can create new projects. So I'll just click as new project up here. And up here, I'm going to say that I want my very own basic web page. Okay, so if I click into my very own basic web page, it's going to go create and then put me into a new project. So let's see what happens when we do that. So inside of here, we're going to see the glitch editor. So on the left-hand side, we have the README file, we have an HTML file, JavaScript file, and a CSS file. So we can actually go and modify these and we can do things with them. So you can imagine we can put HTML in here, JavaScript in here, CSS in here. Once I've done that, I can go click the share button and you can see that glitch has actually already put it at this URL. So if I copy this URL and I open that in a new browser, it's generated this nice name for me and it's automatically put my app just already sitting out there, already done. That's how easy it is with glitch. So now in here, if I wanted to make a modification, maybe to make it so that the index page says something different, I can say hello there class or hi there class instead. Go over here, refresh, and it automatically has my changes. So that's how easy glitch is. And also glitch, like Jen was mentioning, is a community for remixing other people's creations. So if I click something like remix project, other people can go to your project and make a modification of it. The benefit of that is that if I go back to glitch here, I can actually go here and I can find other people's projects. So if I find other people's projects, I can click remix and I can essentially edit their projects and learn from the work that they've done. It's very, very cool. Let's see. If I go in here, you can find, oh, somebody has done all of these projects. These are users. I can go in here. It says, let's see, click projects. These are all projects that people have created. So I can say, I'm interested in this. Let's take a look at it. This is what it looks like. And then I can actually just remix it and modify it. So I'm not only able to modify it, but when I actually go to remix it, I'm able to see all of the source code that makes that page and play with it quickly. So I can make changes and I can be able to see them. So this is someone else's app that they've built. If I click share, I get a URL here. I can copy it, open it in a new browser. Now I've got the tabs that this person created, including this behavior for doing something. I've never seen this app before, so I don't know what it does. But I can actually go in here and I can look at the CSS that they've written and I can just modify it. So it's like, yeah, it is like CodePen, but it is an entire community of people that are creating things and then remixing them. Super, super cool. Let's go back to our console. It looks like it is saying that the SQLite gem is not supported on Heroku, which makes sense because Heroku uses a different database not called SQLite. So to fix that, we are going to have to use a different database called Postgres. I'm going to make the change. If you don't understand this piece, it's totally fine, but you can feel free to re-look at this video again to see how this part works. So I'm going to say gem pg. I'm going to write bundle. And then I'm going to go into my config directory and open the file database.yaml. And in production, I'm going to write adapter PostgreSQL. I think that's right. So let's try it. I'm going to change the file. I'm going to say use Postgres. And then I'm going to close the file, which is going to commit it. And now we're going to push that to Heroku. And we'll see what happens this time. Manon says, so remixing on glitch is basically like a fork on GitHub? Yep, that's exactly what it is. And that's actually an interesting point. Maybe I should take a second to say what they're talking about. So when you're on GitHub, you can actually do the same thing. You can not only see the source code, but if you want to modify it, you can click fork. And when you click fork, you'll be able to create a copy of that repository that you can change and then share back with the community. So the same kind of thing as glitch. Just like you said, just glitch is a lot quicker to kind of get set up. Justin says, so what is the difference between Glitch and Heroku? So Glitch cannot run Ruby and Rails apps on the server side. So the difference is just that Heroku is a platform that you would put something on if you wanted to run it consistently and you wanted to have guarantees about the uptime. Glitch is more typically for like pet projects. You wanted to be able to put something up, experiment with it, and remix it. So think of Glitch as like a community of people that are trying to remix and create new things. Heroku is more like where you would actually put an app if you wanted to have it be a service that other people could use. Manan says, is Heroku like freelance AWS? That is a great question. I would say yes, but also I will also tell you that Heroku is hosted on AWS. So Heroku is actually just AWS. Heroku is a layer that sits in front of AWS. They don't have their own data centers. So when you're using Heroku, you're actually using Amazon Web Services. Okay. Any more questions while our Heroku app figures out what it's doing? Felipe says, AWS gives 1 year free. Is this not better than Heroku or Glitch? I think it is, but it is more confusing. It's a lot easier to get set up with Heroku or Glitch. AWS requires you to know a lot more about how servers and server configurations work. It is not nearly as easy as the two options that I'm showing here. So just again, the options I'm showing you here are ways to get something that you do onto the internet. Heroku is a great option because it is going to very quickly get your app on the internet for free, and that app can be a Ruby and Rails app, which of course, if you've been here for the last like 4 weeks, hopefully you're convinced that at this point that Ruby and Rails is a great way to build a real application. So JavaScript is, and front-end frameworks are fine if you're just trying to build a toy app that doesn't have to connect to a server, but most real applications have a database and they have things like that. So if you're interested in building real applications, which I think everyone here is, because that's the point of the course, then Heroku is a great option for getting started hosting your applications on the internet. If you want to learn JavaScript and you want to be able to learn from other people, Glitch is a great opportunity to do that because you can see people's code, you can modify it, and then you can run it without any worry about breaking anything because you're making a copy and you can do whatever you want in your copy. Okay, now we got to talk about the final project. I am running out of time to let this Heroku thing finish. But if people are interested in more details about this, you can look up details about how to get a basic Rails Heroku app running. It really is very simple. It's really just the two modifications. So it's using Heroku Create to create the app, which involves logging into Heroku inside of your code space, and then making this modification to the database YAML. And once you do that and it gets pushed to Heroku, we'll actually be able to access it from the internet, and anyone will be able to access it from the internet. So this is a fun, easy, quick, free way to get your Rails apps, including databases, on the internet. Okay. How are people feeling about? There's a lot of various information today, but hopefully people are excited about the possibilities here. Looks like our SQLite gem is still trying to get loaded. It's going to take a second to figure this out. All of this is Googleable, by the way. So if you see an error like this, you can Google why you're seeing that error and you can fix it. In this case, we would just need to remove the SQLite gem or create a group to put it in, group development view. We'll see if we can kind of get this working. But okay, let us go through some details about the final project. It really wants the, okay, cool. Oh, they're back with the machines. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm going to get the presentation up. Okay, my presentation is stuck on the other computer. I'm going to figure this out real quick, but in the meantime, I'm going to continue to answer questions. So let's go through some. So Erica says, what's a good way to learn serverless? And can you use Ruby on Rails? I don't have experience with serverless and Ruby on Rails. It's typically not the language that you would use for serverless, but I would say just like Google, like serverless intro course or tutorial on serverless. I think the world is still trying to find out if serverless is a trend or a thing that is here to stay. That's not to say you shouldn't learn it, but just to say that, like, who knows? Who knows what way it's going to go? I got this great presentation I want to be able to show. I'm going to save it as a PDF, maybe? I'll just do that. Okay, hopefully we're going to be able to get the presentation. You know, nothing's easy. Nothing's easy around here. Okay, the next question is, what happens to all the action that you didn't implement on your resource? So in development, they'll error, like we've seen kind of the whole time here. And in the in not development, they will return a 404. So hopefully the thing that you would expect, meaning like in production, it's fine to have them. It's fine to have them that way. I'm going to move this file to Dropbox. Okay, Felipe says, I guess in Heroku there's a minimum size, maximum size for the free version. Yeah, your database is going to have a limit on how big it can get in Heroku. So I hope that answers the question. And Andre says, can we open localhost to external visitors? You can, you should not do that. And the reason is that if you do that, you're exposing kind of your computer itself to anyone that might access it. In the case of Codespaces, if you were to do that, which I don't even think you can do in Codespaces, you would be potentially exposing your GitHub key, which is the thing that allows you to push as you to GitHub to potentially random people on the internet, which you definitely don't want to do. Okay. I've got some version of the final project presentation here, and I am going to get started. Okay. Any word yet on whether we can use Codespaces for the final project or not? For the time being, you can. So you should be fine. This is the best way that I can figure out to show the presentation. So this is what we're going to have to go with. And then I'm going to get my notes because I need my notes. Okay, I got them. Can everyone see the right things? I won't be sending out the slides. What I'll be sending out instead of the slides is a very long document that contains everything that I'm about to say. Okay, so we made it. We're here. This is the end of the course for the last 18 minutes of the course. And now it's time to put all of the great work learning the things that we've learned over the past 15 days, of course, but really like the past month of time into action. I'm going to open a beer. I got a beer sitting right here. This is a Galactic Fruit Stand, which is a New England style double IPA from a brewery called Four Noses in Colorado. Have a beer with me if you're interested in having a beer. If not, that's fine too, but it's a celebration. Today's really great. We got all the way through the course. The people that are still here, you're amazing. So here's to you. That's pretty good. So the goal of the final project is really to test your knowledge and your ability in the topics that we've covered over the past 4 weeks. Those topics include Ruby, Rails, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And they form a core foundation on which you can build a new career in software development. I hope I've convinced you of that, because that's what the whole course is about. final project is going to be a lot of work, but hopefully a lot of work is nothing new at this point. You can do it. If you've taken a bootcamp before or really done any large project like this, you are probably used to a certain type of final project. I'm going to open this document here. Oh, God. Okay, sorry. Yes, you're probably used to a certain type of final project. It's a large project that you're mostly on your own, and I'm trying to do things a little bit differently. Because I want to make sure that you're setting the right level of expectations for yourself for what you're going to need to be an active participant in our industry. So instead of sending you off on your own, what I want you to think of me as in this project is a project manager. What you're going to do is you're going to choose the topic that you want to work on, but then each week you're going to send your work in progress to me for review. I'm going to give you feedback on places that I'd like to see you go next with the project or ways to extend the ideas that you've put together so far. So I'm going to start by talking about just how to choose a topic for a bit. So when you're choosing a topic and a goal for your final project, it's important to choose something that's really interesting to you. It doesn't need to be a new app. It doesn't need to be like some awesome thing that's going to charge money and turn into a whole business. But it is important that the subject matter of the final project is actually something that is important to you and close to your heart. When you're thinking of a project, it's also often helpful, at least I find, to start with the topic and then add some extension or like kicker to that topic that justifies it being an interesting project. So a couple examples I'm kind of listing out here is, hey, I'm going to build a site to catalog all the vinyl records that I have and what I think of them. And then the kicker is, oh, other people can create catalogs too, and then we can show average ratings or we can organize trades between people that have different record collections. Another example is, I'm going to build a site for checking out the local tides in my area. And the kicker is that people can get signed up to get notified when tides are within a certain good range for fishing. I'm going to build a site to document my travels. And the kicker is that other people can create accounts to document theirs, as well as giving personal recommendations about the things that they have visited or enjoyed in each area. So just to go over the process real quick. Hopefully there will not be too much sleeping with your computer sitting next to you, but the process is that you're going to create a repository with a certain name, and that name is going to help me be able to find your project, and that's where you're going to do all your work. So you're not going to do the work in the existing repository that you have. You're going to create a new repository. You're going to choose the topic. Remember, the topic is something that's interesting to you, something that involves the material that we've covered in the course, which again is JavaScript, Ruby, Rails, HTML, and CSS. You're going to need more than what I've taught in this course to do the project, and that's where your research comes in. I also need the project to be of sufficient scope, and I want the project to be out of your comfort zone. Then after that, you're going to email allaboardbootcamp@gmail.com. You're going to do that by Saturday, March 27th, which is this Saturday, with the details of the project that you're hoping to do. In that email, I want to see a high-level summary of the work that you're planning, and then a breakdown of what the project is going to entail. Then you're going to wait for me to kind of respond to you. We're going to talk back and forth. I'm going to try to respond to everybody by Monday, March 29th. The earlier that you get your email to me with the idea, the earlier I can respond to you and you can get started. And then what we're going to do after that is that at the end of each week on Friday, for 3 weeks total, I want you to email me again. And in this follow-up email, you're going to send a description of your progress, a link to your repository, and any necessary instructions for how I can run your project locally. because I'm actually going to take each of your projects, I'm going to run them on my computer, and I'm going to check them out before giving you feedback. So just to be really clear, the feedback days are going to be April 2nd, April 9th, and April 16th is the final day, which also happens to be my birthday. I'm going to be sending feedback on your project back to you every time that you send an update to me. I'm going to do it as soon as I can, but in the meantime, you can feel free to continue working in the direction you were going. The goal here is that you're going to address the feedback that I've given you in the following week. You're going to submit your final project and your write-up on April 16th. Similar to the other check-ins, I want you to include a description of the work that you've done, the link to your repository, and also consider copying that final description that you're writing into the README file so that other people can see it when they go to your repository. Because again, I want the final project that you create as a result of this course to kind of be a bit of a portfolio piece for you. So just to really nail down that timeline with some explicit dates, and I'm going to send out a giant document that contains all of this information again after the course. The 27th is when I want you to send me your description by. The 29th is when I will send you feedback or the go-ahead by. On the 2nd, I want you to send me your first progress update. On the 9th, you'll send me another progress update. And then on the 16th, that's going to be the end of the project. ASAP after the 16th, I'm going to review it one final time, and I will deliver your final feedback for the course. That's also the end of the course. Like I mentioned, some people are going to want to be able to keep the data around the final project for a portfolio piece. There's two ways that you can do that. The first way is to create a personal repository and then add a second remote in your code space, similar to what we were just doing for Heroku, and push your repository so that the code and history now exist in two places, one inside of the All Aboard Bootcamp repository and one inside of your own. The other way to do it, if you prefer to have your information removed from my organization entirely, is I will work with you to transfer your two repositories over to your personal account. From there, you can do whatever you want with them. You can make them public, you can delete them, you can do whatever you want. I have to go through a couple kind of meta points here, so I'm just going to go through these real quick. The goal of this course and the goal of the entire project is to help people. That's why I'm doing all this. That's why I put in all the work and all the time, and why you put in all the work and all the time. And because of that, my focus needs to be centered on the people that were taking this course. So if people are not taking the course or are just getting started on watching the first lecture or whatever, it is likely too late if you're that far behind to be able to finish the project. And at this point in our whole thing, I'm shifting all my attention to all of you. Everyone that's in this room, everyone that's going to do this final project, my attention is on making you succeed. So basically just to say that if someone is out there and you were not taking the course, I can still help you, but I can't help you as much over the next couple weeks as I'm going to be focused on people that are in the course. The next thing is that while I realize that the recommendations that I'm promising to give at the end of the course and the end of the final project are a helpful part of a job search, I again want to put all of my attention on helping people that need the help and that participated in the course. So if you're out there and you're maybe watching the videos, or maybe you've skipped all of the videos and you're just watching the final project video, maybe you're a seasoned developer looking for a job recommendation, just please consider taking another path to get that job recommendation. I'm happy to talk with you. I'm happy to help you. But this course is about helping people that are looking to make inroads into a job in tech, not people that have potentially worked in tech, found trouble or something. I want to help you, but if you haven't done the work to get up to this point, maybe you're considering trying to submit a final project in a language that I haven't taught or not use the contents of the things that I have taught, I just can't do it. I need to put the focus on the people that are doing the work that I've laid out. So if you can't follow the rules of the final project, then please just find another path to get a recommendation. It could be from me, you could talk to me, we can talk about it, But what I can't do is like put you in a group with a bunch of other people that have worked really hard and then essentially diminish the work that everyone in this chat has put in by putting you in the group, despite the fact that you haven't done the work or stayed up with the class. So I hope that makes sense and doesn't upset anyone, but I had to say it. The next thing to note is that the project is not a group project. So you're in a group with me. I'm your group. You are not building an app together in a group. You're building an app by yourself. There are many boot camps where people work together, and I found that when that happens, what actually happens is that one person does all the work and everyone doesn't do anything. So this is not a group project. This is a solo project. That being said, there is still Slack. Slack is still there. It's going to be open for 90 days from the start of the course, which will give us 2 more months of Slack. That means that you can do research given all of the things that have already been written in there. You can talk to each other. The study groups can continue if people are interested in that. But I really want the code that you submit to me to be code that you wrote. So it doesn't mean you didn't ask for help. It doesn't mean you didn't Google anything. All it just means is that it's your idea, it's your work, and you understand the lines of code that you're sending to me. Because if you think that you are going to send me something that maybe you copied from somewhere and you might get me to review that and I think that it's yours, so I recommend you for a job, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get hired somewhere and then you're not going to have the fundamentals. So please, please catch up with the course, do the work, and submit a project that is your own project. The last one is that unfortunately, just due to like the time and how the course works and how we're going to be submitting the people that have finished the final project and actually followed through at the end of the course, I'm not going to be able to take submissions after the final project window is over. So my birthday, April 16th, that's it. That's the end. 11:59 p.m. Eastern time on April 16th, that is the end of the submission timeline. It has to be like that because of how I'm working with other companies and how I'm working with getting you potentially hooked up with employers. It also has to be worked like that because we are going to need like some finality to the end of the course. Like I can't, for the next year, we can't be helping people like that maybe discovered the course in 3 months and want to submit a final project in 4 months from now. I want to run the course again. I want it to be successful. In order for it to be successful and in order for me to be able to do it again, April 16th needs to be the cutoff. Or I guess what I should say is there needs to be a cutoff, and I've chosen the cutoff of April 16th. Okay, so that is the end of my presentation, other than to say that you can do this, I believe in you, and I'm here to help you. So let me go back to the code browser. And let me show a couple things. Okay, the first thing that I want to show you is I just want to go back to my code space and I want to show you that the next time that I push to Heroku, I didn't touch it, I swear. This is the actual last time that I did anything. So the last time you saw me do something is the time that resulted in this thing that happened. It successfully did push to Heroku. You can see here, now there is a domain that I can go to. It says it's been deployed to Heroku. If I click into here and I click follow link, I want to open that page and you see this error. It's the same error that we see every time we deploy an app, except this error is coming from hello, it's me 12345.herokuapp.com. So what does that mean? That means that we've actually successfully deployed the app to Heroku. So we want to make this modification to add this to the host list, and then our app is going to be running there. The database is there, the web server is there, and actually this URL, hello, it's me 12345.herokuapp.com, everybody can see that, not just me. It's public to the entire internet. So that is what is super cool about Heroku. The second thing I want to show you is I want to show you this, which is the thing I'm going to send you after the class. It is a description of the final project. It includes the goal. It includes the summary. It includes detail on how to choose a topic, including the examples that I just said. It includes the full breakdown of the process that we're going to be following. It includes the timeline that I put in the slide. And it includes information about how to keep your data and how actually you'll go and add a remote if you want to do that. And it also includes those meta points that I mentioned at the end because, of course, I have to write them in there. Okay. Now we're at the end of the course. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit here for a bit. I'm going to answer questions and I'm going to drink the beer. And I'm also not ruling out some kind of a, after the course is over, some kind of a, if we did a Zoom session and instead of it being a webinar, it was like a meet and greet, I would love to see all of you. One thing I wanted to do at the end of the course the whole time was I wanted the last session to have you all turn your video on. Unfortunately, my Zoom license does not let me do that. So I can let individual people turn their thing on, but I can't let everybody. But maybe in the future we can get like a one-day Zoom license that'll let that happen. Okay, Manon says, cheers, John, we appreciate you so much. Cheers to you, I appreciate you. Anonymous attendee says, you won't be sending out the slides, but you will send out the video for the session. I will absolutely be sending out the video for the session. I'm also gonna send out that document that I sent out. Johnny says, Heroku, and I did show just a minute ago, it successfully did go to Heroku, it's working. Justin says, this has been super helpful. How long do you plan on keeping the videos? The videos are going to stay there as long as YouTube lets them stay there. So they're going to be there forever. I'm also considering ways to share them to the internet so that other people can benefit from them. And actually, that's an important thing that I wanted to note. It was actually on my list, but I missed it. There's a feedback form that I've created. The feedback form is there to collect feedback from all of you about how the course went. One of the questions that I ask in the feedback form is whether or not you think that we should share the videos. So just make sure you fill out the feedback form and you can help give me some advice on what to do after the course. Anonymous attendee says, what's the final count today? We had 76 people earlier, which actually went up from yesterday, which is pretty neat. Munir says, I'm getting the authenticity token error. If you're getting, if you're talking about on my Heroku, it just needs to be configured with the right config hosts. If you're talking about in code spaces, then I covered that a few days ago, but basically there's a line that you need to add to your config/application.rb to have it working on code spaces correctly. Anonymous attendee says, hi, John, I was wondering what project we should work on if we don't have any ideas or a topic. What is your favorite thing? I like tools. I can make a site to catalog all my tools and write reviews of how they work. I like beer. I actually made a site about beer. It's called beerbroadcast.com. So if you have an interest, that's the start of an idea. Think of something that, it doesn't need to be something new or revolutionary or something that you could share with others or something that even other people would be interested in. It just needs to be something that you care about. And the reason for that is, who wants to work on something they don't care about? Anonymous attendee says, do you have the link for the course recordings? The link is available in Slack. Someone might also be able to drop it here. There actually is a link that I've passed out a few times, but don't have available on this computer, which is a link that contains all of the videos, which is a single playlist of all the videos. So they're out there. Anonymous attendee says, after deploying to Heroku, can you modify and deploy again? Yep, that's exactly how it works. You can modify, you can deploy again. It's just like a normal Rails app, except it's on a place that never goes to sleep. You know, like it's available from everywhere on the internet and it doesn't turn off when your computer turns off. Anonymous attendee says, will you help with the scope of the project? As in, if we submit an idea that might be beyond what we have learned and can be done in the next 3 weeks, will you tell us? Or guide us toward a project that can be done in 3 weeks, what we've learned so far? I have an idea using tech I don't know how to use. I want you to pick a class, or sorry, to pick an idea that contains things that you have not done in this class. If you picked only things that were done in this class, you might not learn very much. So I want you to learn more. This is not a light obligation. It's like, I want you to think of it almost to the point where over the next 3 weeks, the amount of time that you're expecting to put in is the same amount of time that you've put into this class for the past 4 weeks. So it's 3 more weeks of class. It's just that 3 weeks of class is time for you to go experiment and explore. So that's why I want to review your project beforehand, is because I don't want anyone to undersell what they're capable of. I want everyone to overshoot and then try their best to get it done. So that's why I'm going to be reviewing your projects. That's why I'm going to be spending time with your projects. Justin says, in the domain you created on Heroku, how would you remove herokuapp.com? Yeah, so you should look up Heroku, just type Heroku CNAME in Google, and you can figure out how to register a domain and then deploy your Heroku app to that domain. So it's definitely possible. It's not related to payments. It is just, Heroku doesn't have the ability itself to create a new domain and then put your site there. You have to create a domain, and then you have to tell the company that you registered the domain through, which is called the registrar, you have to tell them that Heroku will be doing your hosting. But if you look it up, you'll find all the details. Andre, what are today's attendance numbers? 76 was the height of the attendance numbers today. Ernest says, can we implement other Rubygems in the final project? Yeah, you can use other gems, use other packages. That's kind of why I showed it to you in this class, is 1, to give you a taste of like everything that exists, and 2, to motivate you to see what's out there that you can use in your projects. Adnan says, can you give an example of something extra that you'd like to see that wasn't thought of in this course? Yeah, I didn't show you how to use gems. If you did an app that wanted to incorporate things like pulling the weather from a weather API, or you wanted to include Google Maps, or you wanted to include maybe some kind of image slideshow behavior, or you wanted to, I mean, there's infinite examples of things I could say. If you wanted to be able to include embedded lists of tweets in your project, if you wanted to be able to use, like you're saying, CSS Grid or CSS Flexbox, those are extra things. So yeah, just go outside your comfort zone. I say don't rely on things that you know, but I didn't teach. Don't rely on just those things. I want you to try new things. A lot of this is kind of self-directed, but it's important that the things you pick are not just things you already know. Again, I just really, really want to highlight, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm saying if you're only here to get my recommendation and not here to learn programming, then get my recommendation, that I would like to find another path for you to get a recommendation for a job. Because the point of this course, and the reason that a lot of people are here, is to learn how to program. How many of us made it to the end? So to the end of this course, 76 is the number. Anonymous attendee says, so the repo for the final will be public. How will we allow you access? The repo for the final is not going to be public. It will be a private repository inside of the All Aboard Bootcamp organization, just like the repository you already have. It's just a second, different other repository. So you're going to go create that one. That's the one I'm going to check. And then at the end of the final project, when we're totally done, you can decide what you want to do with it. If you want to push it public to your own user, you can do that. If you want me to transfer the repository to you, you do that. You do anything you want. Erica says, how many people showed up today? 76. Adnan says, taught. I think that's just a typo correction, but if not, let me know. Erica says, is there anything that we can do to help you run future courses? I really appreciate that. I don't know yet, but I will let you know. And I still have the list of all of your contacts. So the same one I've been using to send out information about the courses that we've been doing thus far. So if I think of something and places that I need help, I will definitely reach out. And I really appreciate that. Erica says, do you need any documentation? That is going to be a very tricky thing because when I publish the curriculum, I can't publish my notes. My notes are not going to make any sense to anyone else. So I am going to need to figure out how to go through each of the sessions and basically turn them into something that that makes sense. The reason I want to publish the curriculum is, I think I've covered this a few times, but my goal is that other people can do this course. I want other people to do this course. I want them to do the exact same thing that I did. So my goal is to publish the curriculum and potentially even publish the videos so that people can see how the course went, what it involved, how I avoided going down like random alleyways that would have distracted from the course and ruined the whole thing. And they can do the same thing for themselves. So that's what I'm going to be trying to produce. My final project over the next 3 weeks is to try to produce something that I can share with other people to motivate them to do the same. No, it wasn't you, Erica. It's fine. It was me. If anything, it's like there's a term that they call nerd sniping, which is when you say something to someone and there's like their curiosity gets piqued, and all of a sudden that's the only thing that they can focus on. Yeah, it's from XKCD. Joel says, I have 2 ideas. Should I just pick one and submit by email? Yeah, please pick the one that you said that they're in different scale. Pick the one in bigger scale. Because if you don't, I'm going to push you to make the one of less scale of bigger scale. So pick the one of bigger scale and let's try to build it together. You can email me. I'm going to try to email you. The time that I now have back from not running this course every day, I'm going to use to help you do the projects. So shoot big, I think. Lynn says, super appreciative of the entire month's effort, and I'm glad the materials will be available afterward. I'm confident of catching myself up to the materials over the next few weeks, though I'll simply enjoy everyone else's projects if we have a project presentation session. Lynn, thank you so much. I really appreciate this message, and I love that idea. I didn't think of it, and now I feel very silly for not thinking of it. I've been struggling with a place to have us all see each other, and you just nailed it. That's exactly what we have to do. So that's exactly what we will do. We're going to create a session around the time of my birthday, not on my birthday, probably a couple days afterward, because I want to be able to review the final submissions. I'll organize it and I'll send out the details. I think that it is a great idea because I'd love to see all of you. It's also a great idea because how else? It's like another motivating factor for people to keep going. It's a perfect idea. Lynn, I really appreciate your message. So I'm going to take a note of it right now. Okay. Andre says, what if everyone comes out with a note-taking app or to-do list? If everyone messages me with a to-do list, I will reject that idea because it's very doubtful to me that a to-do list in its own right is something that is very close to your heart. I want you to do something that's interesting to you. I also think the to-do list doesn't stretch the boundaries of what I've taught in the course so far. So while a to-do list is easy and approachable, it's not going to work for the final project. Now, if somebody messages me something about a to-do list and it's got some kind of an extra spin on it, I don't know. You know, I'm open to ideas, but I really do want the project to be something that's important to you. So when you're writing your write-up to me, think about that. Think about the fact that I want you to stretch yourself and that I want it to be something that's important to you. Rubina says, what's a good book to use for reference for Ruby on Rails? I think I mentioned the Rails 6 way. It's the Rails way, but it's been updated for Rails 6. That's kind of my go-to recommendation for Rails books. Honestly, it's not super great. You know, like there are no Rails books that I know of that are up to date and that I would kind of wholeheartedly recommend. What's nice about that book is that it is updated with new versions of Rails. Anonymous attendee says, can you give an example of a project that you may think is going overboard and a project that is reasonable? Okay, so a project that's going overboard would be something like, I'm going to build YouTube. And I'm going to make it so that people can pay to host their videos, and then I'm going to make it so that other people can sign up and can pay to see those videos so that it's like a monetization platform for YouTubers and everyone's going to switch. That's going overboard. A project that's reasonable would be something like some of the ideas and examples that I mentioned earlier. And a project that is maybe under is like a to-do app, or maybe just like a CRUD app that shows like books you have, and you can list the books and click into them and see the books. That's not enough. I need more than that. And particularly, I want to see the technologies that I taught in the class. I want to see Rails, Ruby, JavaScript, HTML, CSS. So if your project does not involve all of those things, then it's probably not a good project for us for the final project. Yulia says, is login required for the feature for the project? Nope, don't care. I don't care if you have login or not. If you do have login, you should check out a gem that will make it easier for you. Something like there are many Rails gems that would make login easier. Something like Devise, or you could look at, there are just so many other ones. So I would just Google Rails gem authentication. Manan says, I have a rough idea of what I want to do. It's something close to me, but I'm not sure the idea is super structured in how I would deploy it. Is it okay to send you a rough sketch? Please do. And the sooner that you send me that rough sketch, the sooner I can give you feedback. And then the sooner I give you feedback, the sooner you can start. Dimple says, can you design CI/CD pipelines for Rails hosted on Heroku? You can, or you could use the CI/CD features that are built into GitHub Actions, or you can use an external CI/CD like BuildKite, or any other CI/CD service, Circle CI, Travis CI. R. Reza says, thanks, John, for the amazing 4 weeks. I learned so much and I loved it. Any advice from your experience how to deal with imposter syndrome? Yeah, imposter syndrome is tricky. I had it for a long time. I felt that way. And then one day I stopped. And the reason that I stopped is I said, like, it's not benefiting me to think this way. I just don't even care what people think anymore. But still, on like my off days, or like days where I'm not feeling so good, I do think like maybe me, like I sometimes think, okay, maybe people won't take me very seriously as an engineer because I'm like personable and I talk a lot and I like tell jokes and stuff. And maybe those jokes are like preventing me from growing as an engineer. They're somehow like preventing me from becoming a better engineer. And I kind of get in my own head and I start to think like, well, all the engineers that are higher title than me like aren't personable and they don't like these things. And I kind of get down on myself. But at some point you have to say to yourself that you're going to be your true version of yourself. You're going to be who you are. So it really doesn't matter what other people think of the skills that you have in software development. There's a very good chance that everyone else in the room is not saying like, oh, why is this person here? Especially once you pass a tech interview. That should help with the imposter syndrome because everyone in the room interviewed you and then said yes. I realize like a lot of this is easier said than done though, right? Because you hear me say like, oh, just don't have imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is it's very real. It's very hard to get over. And unfortunately that feeling that you're having doesn't really change the more you get into software. It only is going to change if you decide that it doesn't matter, you know? I guess one thing I would ask with imposter syndrome is like, you have imposter syndrome, you have a feeling that other people maybe feel like you don't belong in the workplace. Is that accompanied by a feeling that you're about to be fired? And a lot of times when you ask someone that question, the answer they say is no. And it's like, that's kind of a soothing thing for the imposter syndrome is because like, if you're not thinking that your career is in trouble, you're just worried about what other people in the room are thinking of you, then it's easier to make the jump to just say, well, I don't care what they think of me. It doesn't matter what other people in the room think about the skills that you have. It doesn't matter who went to school where, would not change anything about your imposter syndrome. People, I've known people that literally have degrees from MIT and are like top mobile engineers on like top Android engineers that are amazing engineers and have the same problems. So unfortunately, it's just kind of like part of the business. It might have to do with the fact that like programmers make as much money as they do. You know, like I was saying yesterday, my first internship, I got paid more than my mom and my dad. It's like, that's a great way to get imposter syndrome really, really quick. Is like, you know, like people have worked 30 years and now you've got your first job and you've got a ton of money, right? So like, did you deserve it? Did you do the work to get it? I don't know. This is a great question. I unfortunately don't have a great answer other than to say that everyone experiences the same problem. And if they don't, then I don't even know what that means. Dimple says, thank you very much, John. I have to leave now. See you. Eric says, I'll worry about imposter syndrome once I can afford to exist. Yeah. Rubina says, which website is good to learn the things that we need to learn on our own? Yes, for JavaScript or CSS, I would recommend just type the thing you want to learn and then type MDN at the end. Stack Overflow is very useful for learning. Honestly, GitHub is very useful for learning because you can see how someone else wrote code and then you can copy that thing into your code. Anyone that says that professional developers don't copy code from Stack Overflow or look up things constantly is just lying. So just find the thing that you need to learn. Don't try to learn everything at once. Just find the one thing you need to learn and then go look it up. So if you wanted to be able to find, okay, there's some space in a JavaScript string at the end, and I want to be able to remove the space. So I type remove extra spaces in JavaScript. The first result here is a Stack Overflow entry, and the title of the text is remove extra spaces in string JavaScript. And then the first example shows you how to do it using the trim method. So that's really how you do it, is think of the one problem that you want and then figure out how to solve it. Just like what I'm saying about like, you know, break it down into pieces, that's exactly what you're going to do. Courtney says, can I use Atom to do my final project? Sure. Yeah, go ahead. You can use any editor that you want. Anonymous attendee says, is there a chance that our ideas could be dismissed? Asking so we could have time to think of other ideas in case the ones put up front aren't accepted. There is a chance, but there's a greater chance that what's going to happen is you'll submit an idea, I'll think it's underscoped, and then I will help you make it bigger. Anonymous attendee says, are we going to create a private repo? Yep, you're going to create a private repo the same way that you created the original private repo, except the new private repo is going to have a particular format so that I can find it easily, and that is your username, then a dash, and then the word final. And that's all included in the doc that I'm going to send out. Ernest says, for the final project, can we clone the minimum version of an existing application? You can, or you can just go into the project and you use Rails new. So it's really however you'd like to start. But if you do start with an existing application, like meaning someone else wrote the existing application, please include that in your write-up because I want to make sure that I can separate the work you're doing from the work that you got for free. Anonymous attendee says, can we use Bootstrap? Yeah, totally. You can use Bootstrap. Please use Bootstrap. Andre says, you mentioned Google Maps and other services via API. We haven't really learned about how to do it, but as a heads up, is it manageable to learn fast to use, for example, Google Maps via API in Rails? Yep, it is. There are gems for Google Maps that are really easy to integrate in Rails. There are also gems in JavaScript if you prefer those. Manon says, I actually been writing a daily blog about the class, but I was planning to polish and publish it this weekend. I would love to read it if you can send me a link. Abdukali says, this was dope bootcamp. Got thrown into the fire, but learned a lot. Coming from a STEM background, I see the reason for hosting this bootcamp, and I completely appreciate you for contributing your time and efforts to leveling the playing field in tech. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being here. Cole says, would trying to learn / implement a little React in our project be acceptable, or is that going too far outside the class scope? Go for it. Go for it, Cole. As long as it's paired with some Ruby and Rails, I'll be happy to review it. Anonymous attendee says, what if we're stuck in implementing something? Are you going to help in that case with the ideas or how to progress forward? I will help you with ideas about your project. I'll try to help you with ideas about your individual technical implementation, but realistically, there's only a limited amount of time that I can do that. So instead, what you can do is drop your question in the Slack. The benefit of that is that someone here might be able to get to the answer before I can. Anonymous attendee says, if our proposal feels insufficient by the end of Saturday, can we turn it in? Yes, please turn it in what you have. I'm not trying to keep that a hard deadline. That deadline is literally there to get you started. So if you go a couple of days past that Monday, I don't mind. Lynn says, yes, final project session. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Anonymous attendee says, hi, John, will it be sufficient if the idea of the project has the same lines of code that you've been teaching us so far in the bootcamp, but having something more like incorporating gems? That's fine. Just send me the idea of the thing that you want to do, and we'll see if it kind of meets kind of the amount of effort that I'm hoping to see put in for the final project. Anonymous attendee says the deadline for submitting our idea is Saturday, 3/27 at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. That is correct. And thank you. Oloason says, thanks, John, for the opportunity. The past 4 weeks are sure a solid confidence booster. You are awesome. Yeah, you're awesome. You all are awesome. I hope it's a confidence boost for you because it's a ton of work. If you do the past 4 weeks and you do the next 3 weeks, you deserve everything that you're going to get as a result of that. So put in the work, put in the time, work with me on the final project, and let's get it done. Lynn says, question for the Slack channel creator, will you keep it open/maintained through mid-April? Lynn, I actually, so I'm not sure if the Slack channel creator is on here. I think they are. So they can speak up if they will, but I actually am the one that spoke to Slack. So Slack is going to have extended it, to Sarah. Sarah is the one that created it. So Sarah created the Slack. Thank you again so much for creating the Slack. But we've already got, yes, I am also an owner, but Sarah created it. I really appreciate Sarah. And then we got it extended for 90 days via help from Slack. And I hope everyone appreciates the work that Sarah's done here, because that Slack is so valuable to the class, to finding out what problems people have and to helping them. So thank you so much for the work you did there. I realize, just even to have the idea to create it really has helped the course quite a bit. Rubina says, thanks, John. Your advice is always appreciated. Anytime. Anonymous attendee, we will have to make branches while we're working on the project, or the main branch is sufficient. The main branch is sufficient. I don't require you to work in branches. Branches are more used when you're on a team developing a larger project. Lil says, thank you for everything. Thank you, and I hope that your environment troubles are either resolved or that we can get them resolved soon. Andre says, yesterday we touched a bit on leak code and getting a job at a large company. I've heard from my friends that working as a developer is, paraphrasing, 50% slapping together various libraries and copying code from Stack Overflow, 40% attending useless meetings, and 10% is actually coding. Hey, that doesn't sound that far off, to be honest. I mean, it changes more the more you level up into engineering, the more you have actual engineering time or time spent building complex architectures of systems. But yes, there is a lot of working with other libraries, trying to read documentation, trying to read how systems work together, and then you are the glue that puts it all together. Have a good night, Eric. Rubina says, thanks, John, for all you do. I salute your parents for the values that you have. Well, thank you. Lynn says, thanks, Sarah and John, for the Slack. Glad it's around for a while. Yeah, the Slack is great. If you're having trouble with something, you can go there and just search. We have so much information just sitting in the Slack already. Manon says, I have a programming background, but no experience with Ruby or Rails prior to the bootcamp. Does that discredit the amount of work that I had to do for the bootcamp? I don't think so, but I need to make sure that your final project reflects the work that we're doing in the bootcamp. So if you've been with us the entire time through the bootcamp, the things I was saying earlier are not for you. The things that I was saying are for, so every time that I send out an email about the course, that email goes to 400 people. Those are the people that had originally signed up for interest in the course. In that 400 people, there are a bunch of people that have never been to this course. So those are the people that I'm talking to when I'm talking about people that have essentially not done the work and are looking for a recommendation. I am less interested in helping those people because I don't think that that's why I created the course. Maybe there's some other service that could be there for underrepresented people, where essentially it could be some network to connect them with job recommendations. But you all put in the work. Everyone that's like sitting here watching this right now, you put in the work. I hope you agree with me that I should spend my time helping the people that put in the work and not the people who are just waiting for the final project prompt so that they can do the final project so that they get a recommendation from me. Now, if I was a paid bootcamp, if I wasn't this free bootcamp that I'm doing myself, now my attitude would be pretty different, right? Because those people that already know how to program that are just looking for a recommendation, well, it's probably going to be a lot easier to find them a job. But I don't have numbers that I have to publish that have to make me look good. I don't care. The bootcamp is free, and if 10 people finish the final project and my drop-off rate is super huge, and then I'm able to line some of those people up with a job, and then people say publicly that we didn't have a good success rate, I don't care. What I care about is the time that we spent here in the bootcamp, that you all had a good time, that you learned things, and that we're able to make programmers out of some people. That's what I want to do. So all the people out there that are watching the videos, or sorry, all the people out there that are particularly watching this video and are saying that they only want the recommendation, please just find another way to get a recommendation. This can't be the way that you get the recommendation. I want the course to help the people that did the work. So I hope you're all feeling that. Everyone that's watching here right now in this, I love you, and I want to work on helping you, not helping some people that have not showed up ever. Yashiel says, sorry, thanks a lot, John, for this awesome opportunity. And sorry for the crying kid. This has been really great on your part, believing that coding is indeed for everybody. However, can we make use of Slack during the project just to exhaust some of the resources of the more knowledgeable? Yes, you can. Please do that. You can use the Slack to ask for help, to ask for tips, etc. Anonymous attendee says, can we use React with Ruby? Will it count toward HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? It will. If you go out of your way to learn React, please include that in your description. That is an entirely new set of technologies that you're going to learn. I want to know about it. Manan says, thank you for saying that. I again want to say how much I love learning from you. I'm excited to share the blog and my project idea over the weekend. Hey, I'm excited to hear from you. Lynn says, to be frank, paid bootcamps don't help people get jobs. Yeah, yep, that's the most frustrating thing. They don't help people get jobs, you're right. What they do instead is they take people that already can get jobs, they only choose those people, and then they line them up with employers that are obviously gonna hire them. Now, I know there are some people here that are about to do a bootcamp. I'm thinking of one person, you know who you are. You can do the bootcamp. The bootcamp will help you. It's gonna help you learn. But the screening process that you had to do to get into the bootcamp is, I've said it so many times in this course, but it's bullshit. It's bullshit that they can do that, or they can just pick people that they think are going to succeed at getting a job. So while I wish you, if you're doing a bootcamp, the best in the bootcamp, I still think bootcamps are just fundamentally flawed. That doesn't mean that they're not helpful. It just means they're broken. Dash says, thank you immensely for the time that you've devoted to help us. I hope one day to pay it forward. Hey, that'd be great. I would love to find some way that people can do it. Maybe it involves running this class yourself in the future, or maybe it's programming. While there are a lot of programmers, is a small world. So there's a good chance that we'll meet each other. Anonymous attendee says, can you give a quick example on a way that we can implement JavaScript for the project? Yeah, so if you're implementing some kind of a client-side behavior, you wanted it to be able to click something and be able to pull some data down from the server, that would be that. So like if you wanted to I tried to show this a little bit with the message functionality yesterday, trying to show you how you could do something useful with JavaScript and XHR. It might involve that. It might involve something like using something like D3, which of course broke my computer yesterday. But you could use something like D3 to create some kind of a visualization. You might want to include something like Google Maps, which is going to involve writing some small amount of JavaScript. You might want to include some charts from something like Google Charts or Highlight.js, and that would also be JavaScript. Erica says, can we web scrape the Slack for useful information? You can do that, and you can search in the thing. One thing that I will be wary about when you're doing that, and one thing that you should just be aware of, is making sure that if you're scraping anything and you're putting information into a different place, that you're being careful with other people's information. And by that, I don't necessarily mean the chats, but I do mean the details that people have shared in the introductions chat, as well as the names tied to pretty much anything that they've said. So while it's good to get information out of the Slack, you do need to make sure that you're not taking any information that could potentially be tied back to someone else in the course, because no one has opted into that. Lynn says, did yesterday's video work out okay? Yes, it did. I was able to recover the first half, and then I was able to bring them into QuickTime and stitch the two together. So there's like a little weird part, but it's fine. Adnan says, I bought a Ruby on Rails course on Udemy years ago that I never watched. If I watch it while I do this project, am I cheating? No. Use anything you want. If another course is going to help you complete the final project, use it. If Googling the answers to all the questions is going to help you, please do that, because honestly, that's what I do. That's what every developer does. They go and like find the answers. Developers are not good because they've remembered all the things. Developers are good because when they find a problem, they can find the answer. So this is a metalworking lathe behind me, which you can use to create metal parts. And actually, this is the small one. I've got a really big one over there. It's like 15 feet long and 4 feet deep. It's huge. And actually, I want to show you something. This is a dusty old book, and this book is How to Run a Lathe. So this is the book that you would use to be able to learn how to run a lathe. Okay, and now I want to show you inside of here. I want to show you this page. Okay, so this is just a random page in the book. You can see that there's a bunch of numbers here. And at the top of this, it says, tables of American National Standard screw thread pitches and recommended tap drill sizes. This is a book for engineers that make metal parts. And it's got a table in it where they look up all the details that they need to know. So all types of engineers, not just programmers, look up details to be able to find things. You're not less of a programmer because you have to look something up. You're more of an engineer because you have to look something up. And I'm not talking about just computer engineering. I'm not talking about Googling as a way to find an answer. I'm talking about every machinist in the world has a book like this with all the answers in it. So look things up whenever you want to. That's what you have to do. Erica says, okay, no, just links. Yeah, just links. That'd be great. Rubina says, what could be some non-technical questions in the interview? Yeah, so sometimes interviews will ask you questions like, what would you do if there was can you draw on the whiteboard the typical client-server architecture? That is a non-coding question. It's not non-technical, but it is non-coding. Another question might be, you have a website and users are complaining that the website is slow. Why is it slow? That's another non-coding technical question. And then there are also non-technical questions, which maybe is the thing you're talking about, so I'll talk about those briefly. Non-technical questions might be like, tell us a time when you worked on a team and had difficulty with another teammate. How did it happen and how did you resolve it? That's a non-technical question. And those are typically also part of technical interviews because they want to make sure that engineering teams work well together. Anonymous attendee says, I am feeling So lost already. Any suggestions, John? If you're not talking about the course and you're talking about the final project, then my suggestion is just roll with it. It's okay to feel lost. It's okay to feel off, and we just have to work through it. That's how we're gonna learn. It's better to find out that you're lost now than find out that you're lost when you take a job. Because if you want really, really bad imposter syndrome, that's how you get it. You go take a job that you don't know how to do the work, and then you can't figure it out. So let's figure it out now instead. If you want to message me or you want to ask questions in Slack or you want to be able to do things like that, please just let me know. Kevin, enjoy your trip at Disney. It's all good. And thank you for the have a safe trip part. We are leaving tomorrow afternoon for Florida. Lynn says, I'll attest to that. As a chemical engineer, I look stuff up all the time. We're not meant to memorize the CRC, for example. Yeah, no engineers do it. No engineers remember everything. It wouldn't make any sense. I mean, we're learning about an entire, think of, there are so many people writing code that just the amount of, you imagine like the code universe is expanding so much faster than you're ever going to catch up with. So remembering all the things just isn't practical. What you have to do is you have to learn the things as you need them. And then some things might stick in your brain. For example, like most of the stuff that I've taught in this course, it's up in there. I have it up in there because, not because I'm an amazing engineer, but just because I've written those things so many times that they're stuck up there. Now, if you ask me how to get a list of songs from the Spotify API, I don't know how to do that. The first thing I would do is I would go to Google and I would search how to get a list of songs from the Spotify API. Rubina, happy to help. Paul Senior says, is using the Rails generator to create everything cheating? No, use the Rails generator, please. It's there to use. There are other tools like Rails Scaffold that they're definitely not cheating, but I think they give dubious value. So I'm less convinced that Scaffold is helpful, but if you like it, then use it. Soul says, yeah, we made it. Congrats, everyone. And thanks, John, for your time and support. Hey, I didn't know what I was doing when I started all of this, but I wouldn't, if I went back in time, I would do it exactly the way that I did it. I got to meet all of you. We built this entire thing. We've come so far. We've learned so much. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to work with all of you. Anonymous attendee says, lots of the Rails gems are outdated. Would that be an issue? I would say just find Rails. I mean, Rubygems is all of the gems that have ever been created. So instead of picking them directly off Rubygems by just going through a list, a better option might be to think of the thing you want to do and then go find a gem that does that thing. There's also a site called Ruby Toolbox. It's ruby-toolbox.com. And what's cool about that site is that it actually breaks them all down by category and lists you the ones that are kind of most up-to-date, most relevant. So Ruby Toolbox is a really nice way to just like find one that works instead of having to sift through all the ones that, like you say, are from 2009. The problem that we came up with before, where we brought in a gem and then it didn't work. That was a case of the exact thing you're saying. It was an old gem that relied on some piece of Rails that doesn't exist anymore. So make sure you're finding gems that are compatible with the version of Ruby and Rails that you're actually running, which for most part, every problem that you can encounter has a corresponding gem that is up to date and solves the problem. It's just a little bit of work to find the right one. Okay. 99 questions answered. Thank you so much for everything over the past 4 weeks. Thank you so much for being in the course, for your time, for your dedication. And I'll be here through your final project. And I'm going to go to Florida and I don't know, just like sit for a week. All All right. I'll see you all soon. Thank you.